Our story starts on Mustafar. The air is thick with ash. Rivers of lava illuminate the black volcanic landscape in shades of orange and red. Obi-Wan Kenobi stands on the bank overlooking his former apprentice. The battle is over. The war is over. The Republic is dead. The Jedi Order is shattered. And all that remains is one final choice. Obi-Wan has the high ground, and Anakin is contemplating his next move. Anakin, please don't try it. I have the high ground. This doesn't end well for you. Even if you kill me, you still lose. You live under the control of the Emperor. He has already clouded your mind, Anakin. We are brothers, and I love you. Padme loves you, Anakin, and she is still alive. There is good in you, Anakin. I know because I helped create it. You and I have gone through so much together for me to believe that this is the monster who you really are. Deep down, I think you know it too. This is not you. The Emperor has been manipulating you for years. Every fear, every doubt, every insecurity. He planted them all. He wanted this moment. He wanted you to destroy everything you ever cared about. But I'm here, Anakin. I'm still here. And it isn't too late. A Jedi pouring out his soul to another Jedi is something almost unheard of. But this isn't Obi-Wan of the Clone Wars. This is the influence of Qui-Gon Jinn finally showing itself. For years, Qui-Gon believed the Jedi had become too detached, too rigid, and too afraid of attachment and emotion. In this moment, Obi-Wan abandons doctrine completely. He simply speaks from the heart. For the first time since entering the Chancellor's office on Coruscant, Anakin truly hears someone. The anger begins to fade. The hatred begins to fade. And all that remains is guilt. Images flash through his mind. Mace Windu falling, the temple burning, the terrified faces of younglings, Padme crying. The realization hits him all at once. He has become the very thing he spent his life fighting. His lightsaber lowers, his eyes well with tears. I should just end it here. Obi-Wan doesn't move. I am no Jedi. The blade rises towards his chest. I don't deserve to live after what I've done. Anakin, Obi-Wan says softly, put the saber down. I can't live with what I've done, Obi-Wan. Then spend the rest of your life making up for it. The words hang in the air. For the first time in years, nobody is asking Anakin Skywalker to be a weapon. Not the Jedi, not the Republic, not Palpatine, just Anakin. Slowly, his thumb leaves the ignition switch. The crimson blade disappears, and he leaps across the lava river. Not as Darth Vader, not as a threat, not as a Sith, as a broken man. Obi-Wan catches him, and Anakin collapses into his brother's arms. Back aboard Padme's ship, the galaxy continues to change. While Obi and Anakin begin the long process of healing, Chancellor Palpatine addresses the Senate. The Republic officially becomes the Galactic Empire. Across thousands of systems, clone troopers tighten their grip, and imperial governors begin replacing elected officials. The average citizen has no idea that Darth Vader never existed, only that the Empire has risen. Meanwhile, Padme survives. When she awakens, she finds Anakin waiting beside her bed, broken and ashamed. Terrified, she will never forgive him. Instead, she sees the man she fell in love with, not the monster he almost became. Days later, Luke and Leia Skywalker are born, and unlike the original timeline, they grow up knowing both of their parents. For several years, the Skywalkers remain hidden on Naboo. To the galaxy, Anakin Skywalker is dead. That lie becomes their greatest protection. Luke and Leia grow quickly. Both display incredible force sensitivity at a young age. Objects float without explanation. Toys move on their own. Leia develops an uncanny ability to sense emotions, while Luke's reflexes become almost impossible to explain. Anakin trains them cautiously. Not as soldiers, not as chosen ones, but as children. And eventually, the family seeks out one final Jedi Master, Yoda. Deep in the depths of Dagobah, when Obi-Wan and Anakin finally find him, Yoda is stunned. The last person he expected to see standing before him was Anakin Skywalker, alive and redeemed. Yoda initially refuses. The old Jedi teachings remain deeply ingrained within him. Attachments, family, marriage, Everything about the Skywalker family represents what the Jedi Code rejected. But years of isolation have changed him. For centuries, Yoda watched the Jedi Order grow increasingly rigid, and now that order lies in ruins. Perhaps the old ways were not perfect after all. Reluctantly, he agrees to help. Together, Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Anakin begin laying the foundation for a new Jedi Order, one built on compassion instead of detachment, understanding instead of repression, balance instead of blind obedience. Yet, while the Jedi rebuild, the Empire grows stronger every day. Construction begins on massive military projects. Entire worlds are stripped of resources. Political opposition disappears and fear becomes law. And above it all sits Emperor Palpatine, alone. Right? The rule of two. Only two Sith Lords can exist at any given time. A master to embody the power of the dark side, and an apprentice to crave it. What if craving that power wasn't natural? What if it was manufactured? What if the Emperor simply built himself another apprentice the same way he built Darth Vader? Because let's be honest, that is exactly what he did with Anakin. He isolated him, manipulated him, fed his fears, encouraged his worst impulses, and then convinced him that the only person who could save him was Palpatine himself. Vader wasn't created overnight. He was engineered, and for nearly 20 years it worked perfectly, until Luke Skywalker came along, until Anakin Skywalker remembered who he truly was, until the weapon became a father again. So what happens when that plan fails before it ever begins? What happens when Anakin rejects the dark side all the way back on Mustafar? Well, if you're the Emperor, you don't give up. You adapt. You find someone else. And there just so happens to be another Jedi Master lying broken somewhere on Coruscant. A man who dedicated every waking moment of his life to the Jedi Order. A man who watched that order collapse around him. A man who came within inches of killing Darth Sidious and stopping it all. Mace Windu. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Mace is dead. Maybe, but this is Star Wars, and people have survived much worse. Darth Maul was cut in half and fueled by hatred alone. Anakin lost 3 limbs and caught on fire. Palpatine himself, somehow, came back decades later. So is it really that difficult to believe that Mace Windu survived losing a hand and being thrown from a window? Maybe he landed on a passing transport. Maybe a maintenance platform broke his fall. Maybe he used the Force instinctively before losing consciousness. Whatever happened, one thing is certain. The fall didn't kill him. The landing almost did. Hours after leaving Mustafar, Palpatine returns to Coruscant. Not to celebrate, not to inspect the Jedi Temple. He has something much more important on his mind. A replacement. The Emperor descends into the lower levels of Coruscant, searching through the endless maze of skyscrapers, landing platforms, and industrial districts. Far below the shining city above, he finds exactly what he is looking for. A body, burned by Force lightning, missing a hand, one leg shattered beyond repair, barely alive. Mace Windu. The Jedi Master opens his eyes just long enough to see the familiar face staring down at him, the last face he ever wanted to see. Palpatine smiles. You have lost everything, Master Windu. Darkness takes him. When Mace awakens, weeks have passed. The war is over, the Republic is gone. The Jedi Order has been exterminated. His friends are dead. His students are dead. Everything he spent his life protecting is gone, and the only reason he is still breathing is because the Emperor allows it. At first, Mace refuses everything. Every offer, every conversation, every attempt at manipulation. But Palpatine is patient. Mace always believed that peace required strength, that evil needed to be confronted, that difficult choices had to be made. In many ways, Mace was already closer to the dark side than most Jedi ever realized. Not because he was evil, but because he was willing to stare into darkness longer than anyone. That is the entire purpose of a pod. To dance on the edge without falling. The problem is that eventually there is no edge left. Months turned into years. Palpatine never asks Mace to embrace hatred. He simply asks questions. What did mercy accomplish? What did the Jedi's compassion accomplish? What did following the code so closely do for you, for anyone? It's all gone. The Jedi are gone. The Republic is gone. And you failed. Little by little, Mace begins believing the impossible. Maybe the Jedi deserved to fall. Maybe they were weak. Maybe order is more important than freedom. Maybe peace requires fear. And eventually, Mace Windu dies. Not physically, but mentally and spiritually. Everything that made him who he was, a Jedi, is stripped away until only one purpose remains: service. The Emperor even gives him a new name: Darth Judicar, a judge, an executioner, a weapon. Years pass, and while Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda, and eventually Ahsoka rebuild the Jedi in secret, the Empire tightens its grip on the galaxy. Entire systems disappear into Imperial control. Resistance cells are crushed before they can ever gain momentum. Senators vanish and governors rule through fear. And whenever someone becomes enough of a threat to matter, Judicar arrives. Unlike Vader, Judicar isn't fueled by rage. He's fueled by certainty that makes him far more dangerous. Vader sometimes could be manipulated through his emotions, by what was left of Anakin inside. But Judicar believes he is doing the right thing. Every execution is justified. Every atrocity is necessary. Every innocent life lost is simply the cost of maintaining the order. And because of that conviction, he becomes the most feared figure in the Empire. By that time Luke and Leia reach adulthood, stories of the Emperor's enforcer have spread across the galaxy. Entire rebel cells surrender when his ship enters orbit. Surviving Jedi go into hiding. Even Imperial officers fear him, not because he is cruel, but because he genuinely believes everything he is doing is for the greater good. Years later, after a close Imperial encounter near Dagobah nearly exposes the Skywalker family, Anakin and Padme finally come to realization. Waiting is no longer enough. The Empire is stronger than ever. The Death Star is nearing completion, and every day they delay, more worlds fall under Imperial control. For nearly 2 decades, they have been preparing for this moment. Luke and Leia have trained under Anakin, under Obi-Wan, under Yoda, and even under Ahsoka Tano. The children are no longer children. They are Jedi, and it is finally time to fight back. One message is sent. A small astromech droid carries it. R2-D2. Its destination, Mon Mothma. The message is simple. The Skywalkers are alive, and they are ready. Within days, the rebellion launches the most daring assault in its history. Not a desperate attack, not a last stand, an invasion. As rebel forces engage Imperial defense around the Death Star, an unmarked transport slips through the chaos. Aboard are Anakin Skywalker, Luke Skywalker, and Leia Skywalker. And before departing, they leave one final instruction behind. If we fail, hide, survive, and rebuild. The future of the Jedi cannot die with us. The Skywalkers cut their way through the station with frightening efficiency. Stormtroopers fall, security teams are overwhelmed, and corridors become battlefields. A father and his children fighting side by side. 2 generations of hope marching towards the heart of the Empire, and eventually they arrive to the throne room, where the Emperor is waiting. Of course he is. Palpatine sits motionless upon his throne, calm, patient, and almost amused. Leia ignites her saber and charges forward. This ends today, or at least it should have, but a purple blade suddenly erupts from the darkness with a crack, and Leia strikes stop inches from the Empire's face. The room falls silent as a masked figure steps forward, tall, armored, and unfamiliar, but yet somehow familiar at the same time. Anakin feels it instantly, something buried deep within the Force, something impossible. Before he can place it, the figure speaks. "This party's over, young Skywalker." The voice hits Anakin like a thermal detonator. It can't be. Leia tightens her grip on the saber. "How do you know my name?" The masked warrior chuckles. "I don't." Slowly he removes the mask, and yellow eyes stare directly at Anakin. "But I know your father's." And the blood drains from Anakin's face. "Mace?" Luke looks between them both, confused and concerned. Dad, who was that? Windu smiles, a cold, humorless smile. They don't know, Anakin, do they? The room falls silent. They don't know, do they, Anakin? Luke looks between his father and Windu, confused. Leia's blade remains locked against Judikar's purple saber. What is he talking about? She asks. Anakin doesn't answer. For the first time in his life, Luke sees fear in his father's eyes. Not concern, not caution, fear. The Emperor smiles. You never told them. Anakin lowers his head. The Emperor slowly rises from his throne. The great Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one. Palpatine begins circling them. Tell them about the Jedi Temple. Anakin's face tightens. Tell them about the children. Luke feels his stomach drop. What children? The Emperor grins. The ones he murdered. Leia's eyes widen. No. Anakin finally speaks. It's true. The room goes completely silent. Every nightmare, every rumor. True. Luke stares at the man he has worshipped his entire life, his father, his teacher, and his hero, and all he can think is that he lied to him. Deep down, he knows his father is guilty, and Windu sees it immediately. The crack, the opening. And unlike Palpatine, Windu understands exactly what Luke is feeling, because he felt it too. The moment he watched the Republic die, the moment he realized everything he believed in was gone, the moment he wanted someone to blame. You see it now, don't you, says Windu. Luke turned towards him. The Jedi failed. The Republic failed. Your father failed. The galaxy suffers because your father destroyed it. Anakin immediately steps forward. Luke, don't listen to him. But Luke barely hears him. Years of stories, years of admiration, and years of believing his father was the greatest Jedi who ever lived. Gone. Destroyed in seconds, and the Emperor smiles. Luke is becoming someone else right in front of their eyes. A man obsessed with justice. The same flaw that consumed Mace Windu. The same flaw that nearly consumed Anakin. And the same flaw that creates every Sith. The belief that if you just had enough power, you could fix everything. The duel erupts. Leia engages Judikar. Anakin attacks the Emperor. Luke stands frozen, unable to move, unable to think. Everything he believed about the galaxy has shattered. The battle rages around him. Lightning crackles, sabers swing. Explosions, and the throne room begins to collapse. And still Luke stands still, watching, thinking, remembering every lesson, every speech, and every lie. Finally, he ignites his saber. Anakin cautiously smiles. For a moment, he thinks his son is joining the fight. But instead, Luke walked towards him, slowly and deliberately. Luke, you knew, Anakin freezes. You knew what you did, every day, and you trained me anyways. Luke, please, he pleads. You told me to be better than you, because I wanted you to be. That's what every father wants. Anakin's eyes fill with tears, because for the first time since Mustafar, he realizes that he has failed again. Not as a Jedi, not as a hero, but as a father. And the Emperor senses the hatred, the anger, and betrayal immediately. But Luke turns towards the Emperor, and toward Judikar, and then towards his father. All three men, three failures, three relics of a broken age. And suddenly Luke sees the same thing in all of them. Weakness. The old generation destroyed the galaxy. The Jedi, the Sith, the Republic, the Empire. All of it broken. All of it deserves to die. Luke extinguishes his saber. The room pauses, and everyone is confused. No one knows what's going to happen next. Then Luke says the most terrifying words Anakin has ever heard. You are all wrong. And the force erupts around him. The floor cracks, the walls shake. Even Palpatine takes a step back. Luke is stronger than any of them realized, not because of anger or fear, but because of conviction. Luke walks towards the throne and takes it. The Emperor laughs. You would replace me? Luke turns. No. Lightning flies towards him. Luke catches it. The entire room freezes. Palpatine's smile vanishes, and Luke redirects the energy back at him. The Emperor is vaporized. Gone. Just like that. No redemption, no sacrifice, no prophecy fulfilled. Only death. Leia watches in horror. Anakin watches in disbelief. And Windu just grins, because he recognizes exactly what is happening. The galaxy didn't escape darkness. It simply created a new version of it. Luke turns towards the others, his eyes unchanged, not Sith yellow, no corruption, no rage. The Jedi had their chance, the Sith had theirs. Now it is his turn. Luke launches Windu into space without even having to look at him. Anakin reaches for Luke. Son. Luke steps away. No. The word breaks Anakin's heart. You taught me that people can change. Luke looks back one final time. You didn't change. You just hid who you truly were. A monster. And leaves. The Death Star burns around them. Anakin collapses to his knees, and for the first time in decades, he understands exactly how Obi-Wan must have felt on Mustafar. Because the son he loves is gone. Not dead. Not consumed by hatred. Something far more dangerous. Certainty. The galaxy is saved from the Empire, but not the darkness. The Emperor is dead. Judicar is defeated. The Sith are destroyed, but balance never comes. Neither does the true Chosen One, because balance was never about defeating darkness. Balance is in the eye of the beholder. He who has power decides what balance looks like, and now the most powerful being in the galaxy, the man who decides the fate of that said galaxy, is a broken man who never had to learn the same themes he did in the original trilogy. Who is Luke Skywalker without the wounds that defined him in the original trilogy? He never needs to save his father. He never learns what redemption is possible. In his eyes, his father was a liar who hid who he was. He never becomes the Luke Skywalker who throws away his lightsaber and refuses to kill. Luke becomes not a Sith, not a Jedi, but the supreme leader and the possible villain for the sequel trilogy.